Hello, viewers. This is Tough Talking Thursday. Today is June 23rd, 2022. Uh, in today's program, we will be talking about speeches. This past week, or over the last 2 weeks, we've heard speeches from our political leaders in Liberia. My name is Mohammed Sharif, sitting in for Dennis Ja. Today, we will look at speeches delivered by Alexander Cummings, George Weah, Joseph Boakai, and Tiawan Gonglo. These are major speeches that were delivered by, political leaders, the incumbent president, and of course, leaders who are seeking or candidates who are seeking his job. Um, as you know, in politics, speeches are very important. And so there was a lot of them this past week with me to analyze these speeches and the impact of these speeches. The potential impact of these speeches is FOL chief political analyst from the city of brotherly love, the city of Philadelphia, our city of Philadelphia, Mr. Wilmer Wetty Cooney. Mr. Cooney, welcome to Tough Talking Thursday.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here always.
Good to have you. Mr. Cooney is, again, the proponent of the one round theory. Believes that George Weah is going to win in the first round of next year's 2023 election. Mr. Cooney is a big supporter of President Weah and President Weah's CDC government. With me also is Agnes Saliv. Agnes Saliv is FOL governance consultant. Agnes Saliv joins us from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Agnes has an extensive public service experience, an intellectual as well. Agnes, welcome to Tough Talking Thursday.
Thank you, Mohammed. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Last but not least is Sir Dave I want to make sure I say that right. Dave Toja. Mr. Ja is a member of the Liberian People's Party and a very big supporter of candidate Tiawan Gonglo. Mr. Ja, welcome to Tough Talking Thursday.
Oh, thank you, brothers. Sharif, I am delighted to be here and I'm looking forward to a very, very splendid discussion from these brilliant minds.
And in the interest of full disclosure, Mr. Ja is someone that I have known for several years as one of the excellent teachers we had in the refugee setting in Equatorial Guinea. Once again, welcome, Mr. Ja.
Thank you. Thank you.
So today we'll be talking speeches. There were a lot of speeches delivered. I want to go right to Mr. Alexander Cummings because Mr. Cummings took on the government of the Republic of Liberia. It was, he lambasted President Weah's government for attempting to postpone the census, this year's census. Mr. Cummings had a lot to say. I think Mr. Cummings, in a lot of ways, putting on my, I can't forget about my hat, my analyst hat. I'm sitting in a hosting chair, Ahmed, so I'm going to disappoint you. I'm not going to take off that hat right now.
All right.
You gotta get me out. You gotta get me out of this chair. But anyway, I thought he was effective. I thought he came across as someone who knew what he was talking about. So Ahmed, I go to you first. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about. I think he's listening. I think he's paying attention now.
Okay, well, thank you again. It's a pleasure to be here. There's beautiful sunny day here in Minneapolis, Twin Cities, and hello to Liberians everywhere across the world. I have to admit, I haven't seen that particular speech. However, I have seen many speeches, and watch and listen to many speeches over the years since 2017 that Mr. Alexander Cummings has given and other politicians. So one thing I have to say about political speeches in general, whether you like it or not, political speeches are performatory. Political speeches are rhetorical at times. Political speeches are symbolic. Political speeches ought to centralize the message and also introduce the messenger, so to speak. It gives the resume of the politician, of the one who is seeking office. But of course, voters are now always interested in the resume, and so voters are interested in the message. What is it that you're going to do? How effective are you able to understand a team, pick an issue, and then develop your message from that? I give you typical examples. 1996, Bill Clinton was all about connecting, bridging the 21st century, right? Ronald Reagan was about morning in America. This is this happy, beautiful city on the hill. And whatever speech Reagan gave, he went back to morning in America. America being a beautiful place, a place where you can come and be successful. Where you are, you can be successful, and therefore there's no need for Americans to suffer. Bill Clinton connecting the generation that America can do better and embrace the technology and the 21st century. Obama, yes, we can. Listen, we can overcome all kinds of challenges that America was facing at that time and connect with the generation.
So who in Liberia currently is hitting the theme and going back to the theme over and over and again? So who do you think is doing that at this time very effectively?
None of them. Sorry to disappoint you. The Liberian political speeches are not. You can do a PhD dissertation on a Liberian political speech, for instance. Maybe if you went back, you read Dr. Elwood Dunn or Weah and Amos Sawyer and others, you might find something there going back to history. And maybe if you read Cecil Dennis or Dennis's speeches, or if you read something from William Tarbell, President Tarbell, he was oratory. He was a political speech maker. Tubman, not so much. Tubman made political speeches, but his was not as symbolic, as performatory as were Tarbell's speeches or Cecil Dennis's or Richard Henry's speeches. So unfortunately, our best day of performatory political speeches, symbolism, sticking to the message, and imbuing and creating hope, making people happier about the process going forward. It's in our past. We haven't seen any in recent time.
Wow, Ahmed, thank you. Wow, that's very profound. So, our chief political analyst, now I go to you. Political speeches are very important. I mean, we've had, like Ahmed mentioned, we've had orators. You know how Tubman was discovered, right? Tubman was discovered in 1920 by C.D.B. King at a Masonic banquet. When he delivered, he was the orator at that banquet. And right there, C.D.B. King said, the nation needs him. He can't be here, meaning that he can't be all the way back there in the Southeast. We need to bring him up to Monrovia. And as it is, the rest is history. And so talk to me about what Mr. Alexander Cummings was able to do this week. Just remove your one round theory. Just remove your pro cap. Remove your CDC cap. All of that cap got to go one side right now. So talk to me about Cummings in a very objective way.
Well, look, Sherry, what Cummings did, especially with regard to the census, is what the opposition been doing all along.
Okay.
Criticize. They don't take no responsibility for anything. They don't offer no alternative solutions to the problems that they criticize. But let's be more specific. Mr. Cummings' position on the census. Mind you, the census is something that is authorized by the legislature. The legislature is the overseer of the census. And Mr. Cummings is talking about suing the legislature that the opposition controls. So it begs the question, where are the leaders of the opposition expending their political influence? If they cannot even influence their own members in the legislature, if they have to go to court. Now, to be honest with you, I'm happy that Mr. Cummings now has confidence in the Liberian court system, that now he can go to court. I'm happy about that. But think for a minute. The Liberian legislature is not controlled by the ruling party. It's controlled by the Liberian opposition. And we hear this constant criticism of things that the legislature do. The legislature exercise oversight. They can call any entity of government, that perform or fail to perform. So the reason why we don't have the census is not being done, it's not the fault of the president. The president don't conduct census. The legislature, yes, you have the executive branch that conduct the census, but my brother, this is why we have the legislature. So for Mr. Cummings to fail to utilize his political capital in the legislature to show leadership, who do these political leaders, who do they lead? If you can even influence your own legislators, who do you lead really? We need to ask that question in a real serious way.
Okay.
Because I know the Congress for Democratic Change, George Manning Weah provide leadership over the Congress for Democratic Change. When it came to the election of the Speaker of the House, with the CDC black of elected representative, mechanisms were put in place to make sure that black vote according to the dictate of the CDC. That's what you call a political leader.
Yeah, we'll come to CDC.
Yeah, we'll come to that. So what you see these opposition people doing is just empty criticism. For some reason, they are convinced that by criticizing President Weah, to them that is a sufficient winning strategy, but it is not.
Thank you.
What Cummings did, it's not political speech. He didn't persuade anybody. He didn't convince anybody. He didn't express. First of all, the man has no oratory skill. We got to admit that he doesn't. And before I conclude, the brother was listing Liberian political orators. Of course, that list would be incomplete if we don't include the legendary Henry Boyman Famulek Jr.
I agree.
He is the foremost.
I agree.
Officers in our country, and we need to acknowledge that.
I agree. Absolutely. Henry Boyman Famulek, I agree. So, Dave, what do you make of this speech? Just give me a summary of what do you make of it as a member of the opposition on the other side, competing against Alexander Cummings. Do you think that he met his objective?
Thank you, Mr. Sharif. Just like Brother Salif, unfortunately, I did not get to his speech, so has to digest it and fully grasp what. But from what some of the panelists are putting forth, but my take on speech giving, my dear brother, is has I think these kind of discussions will give us some opportunity as to what we ourselves can decipher about the Liberian population, the Liberian political class, and who are the Liberian people. Sometimes it's kind of baffling when we are talking about even speech making within the Liberian political spectrum, because we have not arrived at a point where we really know what the Liberian electorates, who they are, what is their level of understanding and their level of appreciation for speeches. Um, we can discuss these speeches as intellectuals, but do those things truly resonate with the Liberian people? Are they in tune with us, or we are just placing some benchmarks for the Liberian people without deeply understanding them and where they are, what is their mindset, what is it that they are interested in? Um, when we talk about even these great speech makers, great, they can be fine used for dissertations, for some intellectual discussions. But when you look at where the Liberian people are, whether it's about speeches, if we go around and ask any Liberian as to, the regular, ordinary people, what do you remember about Mr. Boama Formula concerning his speeches? 99.99% of the Liberian people will not even remember any single thing that Boama might have said. So, in that regards, I think there is a huge disconnect between us, our major politicians, our major speech makers, and the Liberian people. And we, as a people, and some of us as social scientists, I think we should now begin to find a way as to what is it, who are the Liberian people, where are they when it comes to speeches and even communication with the
Right.
Liberian people.
Mhm. Right.
I We haven't gotten to uh, President Weah, but I saw. I mean, his his speeches.
Right.
The moment he utters one word, or sometimes he doesn't utter a word, and you have like thousands of people are
Mhm.
just clapping and
Right.
shouting and that.
Right. Right.
Are they
Right.
listening to speeches, or is just something that is already preconceived?
And Dave, just
Mhm.
you know, just to be clear, right? So we're here talking about what these political, politicians did in the last 2 weeks,
Mhm.
and so if you see some excitement in that, it's because of the deficit, right? So you know, the guys are not saying anything, right? The people, nobody is saying anything.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden, you see some movement in the direction. They're not saying anything at all, right? They're not laying out their expectations. They're not laying out their platform or what they intend to do for the Liberian people. Mind you, this is a country where there's no debate, right? Nobody's having a debate, no political debate before elections. And so, the Liberian people are shortchanged. So when you see them doing something like this, oh wow, so they're actually doing something now. But let me go in another direction. Your candidate,
Mhm.
uh, Mr. Gonglo, was in Minneapolis also, and he said this quote: "Liberia is in ICU. We need transformation. We need a transformation of the Liberian state. We're not talking about change." He said, "We're not talking about change. We need a transformation." He described Liberia as a failing state in this time of peace, and he actually was very effective in terms of tick down. I would probably give him A+ in terms of tick down because some of the things he said, if I said it, and people will be going at me all night. He said Liberia is among the poorest, the least developed country, the most corrupt, the most lawless, the dirtiest countries in the world. It's among all of that. And he even mentioned the Guinness Book of Record where CDB King committed this massive fraud
Mhm.
in the 20s to get elected. So do you agree with Tiawan Gonglo that Liberia is all of these things and some?
I mean, of course, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that. It's daily. I mean, it's reflected in the daily lives of the people. We are one of the poorest countries, and not because we are naturally poor, or not because we don't have resources, but there is a deficit of leadership. Um, Now, the next thing to do about that is, how do you tie that with the quality of life of the Liberian people? Is that's what that is the disconnect between the voters and the situation that we find in Liberia. He rightly said it. Are the people listening? Are they paying attention to those things? And can they show the relationship between those things and the lives that they are leading in Liberia. That is key. Most of the time, we discuss who are those that are responsible for our condition in the past. What have they done? If you raise an issue right now in Liberia, the next thing somebody will ask you is, what have you done? What have you done as an individual? You are in the United States. What have you done? And I said, the little I can do, I'm not going to even display it, but it's not going to have a broader impact on your living condition,
Okay.
except those who control the resources, your taxes, those who are responsible for the major decision making in the country if they get their act together. So, yes, the counselor rightly identified the problems. Now we have to find a way. How do we connect those things to the day to day living condition of the Liberian people? The Liberian people are suffering. We know that. We are in ICU. But the very problem is right before, it's under their feet. The problem is right before them. What is responsible for that problem is right there. But I don't know.
Thank you.
I don't know why, but they attribute that to a net, so to other factors. Oh, Liberia has been this way for the past 100 years. Do you think the George Weah government can correct it within 1 day, 2 days, 3 days?
Thank.
The man has been there for over. If George Weah, if any government put into place the fundamentals, you can correct that, or you can set the foundation to correct the 100 years problems.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Ahmed, now, Tiawan Gonglo was in Minneapolis. I mean, he was also here in PA. He's been around. He's been talking quite a bit about what his Liberia, Tiawan Gonglo's Liberia will be. It will be a Liberia free of corruption. He says it will be a Liberia where people are going to work hard again because nobody is working hard. And he laid down all of these things that he's going to do, while at the same time really going at the government, the Liberian nation state as a whole. And his, sort of approach is not just limited to, just George Weah. I mean, he's looking at, a whole systemic failure. What do you make of this?
Thank you. I saw Councillor Gonglo when he was here. I didn't go to the event, but I did listen to the speech so keenly. I have listened to many of his speeches since he got in the political arena. I happen to disagree with you that he scores one A plus on that particular speech.
Okay.
In fact, I spoke to one of his handlers and I said, well, okay, so the councillor laid out the problems. He said, listen, Liberia used to be here. Liberia was at the table. Liberia was part of all these international, institution making in the African Union and so on. It used to have names, but now see where we are. Liberia is worse here, worse here, worse here. Correct. Okay. So then he said, okay, so y'all support me to get there. He sat down. I said, well, Councilor, you didn't finish the speech. So as one of his people called me, we were talking about different. I said, well, the councillor didn't finish the speech. He said, oh, well, so what do you mean he didn't finish? Okay, look, political speech making, we can't sit here and say words don't matter. Words do matter. And Mr. Conin, I disagree with you. There are categories of political speech making, right? When you are governing, there's a different tone and a different rhetoric and style, rhetorical style of political speech making. The opposition ought to hold the government feet to the fire, hold the government accountable. And some you have to criticize, some you have to goad them and dare them. And, because you want to see them do something. They're not doing, you have to point out to the people where their lapses are and where you can do better, why your message, you're carrying this theme of this messaging and so on. Mr. Cummings, I didn't see the speech, but if you criticize, I wouldn't say, oh, all they do is criticize. Of course, he's an opposition figure, so he has to criticize, he has to hold the government's feet to the fire. So, and of course, the executive, you admitted that the executive is responsible for the census. So George Weah is responsible to conduct the census. The legislature may approve and make appropriation, but ultimately the executive is responsible. Specifically to Councillor Gonglo's speech, I'm not criticizing his speech because he's not a good speaker. Look, political speech making, look at the number of factors. The individual who is making the speech, is the person charismatic? They have different traits and different characteristics, right? Obviously, some are naturally charismatic. They may not be a good speech maker, a good orator, but they're charismatic, and that charismatism and the charisma then can enhance the speech making. Some are very good orators. They're not charismatic, and so the oratory helps, including the substance and everything of the speech. So there are all kinds of factors to consider here. My problem with the Gonglo speech was uh, you have to find a thread. Like I started, right? Bill Clinton, we built a bridge to the 21st century. Ronald Reagan, City on the Hill, Morning in America. Obama, yes, we can. So where's that thread? We can identify. Look at Nkrumah, his speeches. You identify the thread. You look at Mugabe, right? You identify the thread. So words matter. Mugabe speeches led to the independence of Zimbabwe. Nkrumah's speeches led to independence of Ghana. The in the sisters, the fights for to end colonialism. It was all speeches. It was all speech making. It was oratory. It was political speech making. So of course they do matter. Psychologically, they have impact on people. They set the agenda. They set the stage. If we're not making speeches in our country, we're not animating our people. We're not exciting and creating the happiness through political speeches and symbolism and substance of our messages. Then there's problem in our politics in Liberia. So I'll just say that the council speech that ended with, look, here the Liberia used to be here. Then we have problem here. Now we're worse in all of these. Well, here's my message. Here's why I'm the better person who can do it. And here's how I will do why I think I'm the one to do it. Here's how I'm going to do it differently to get us from here to there. So he didn't end that piece there. And he took the criticism, or at least my observation, very in a humble way. I mean, somebody ambushed me, they call me and say, oh, you said the man's speech didn't finish. Oh, he's right here, and they put him on. I didn't expect to speak to him, but I repeated what I had told our handler, and he was very humble. He said, "Hello, Salif, thank you." The people were pushing me to sit down. They said, "Don't make it long. You talk too long," and I just cut it short. I said, "Well, then they didn't allow you to drive the speech through. Next time you start a speech, you have to end it, and here are the elements."
That's good. Very good. So
can I just make?
Can I just come in now?
Huh?
Yeah, Mr. Cooney, hang on one second. So, it's important that our viewers understand that when we're talking about these speech making, it's not just about speech making. It's about these politicians setting the agenda, setting the goal, and what they're trying to do, right? And as you mentioned, Ahmed, yes, these orators, in independent Africa, post-independent Africa. I mean, you have Patrice Lumumba, who delivered one of the best speeches. Actually, he signed his death warrant that day. Sekou Touré, who didn't finish high school, was one of the best orators ever. William Topman, I just talked about Topman. Tolbert went to the United Nations and talked about, the liberation of Southern Africa and would die, fighting. And he signed his death warrant probably that day. So, we've had in our own country and around Africa, individuals who've been brilliant, orators. So, Mr. Kony, Tiawan Gonglo, you're not a supporter of Mr. Gonglo. However, he took down your government. And all of the things that he said are things that are really true. And he could point to examples. He mentioned the Zogos. He said George was handing money to the Zogos to feed their drug habits, and he has interviewed these Zogos, and he's on the ground. He's interacting with these people. This man has a long history of fighting for civil rights in Liberia. Your comment.
Look, listen, the thing is, one of the tragedy that has befallen Liberia is that when people have the opportunity to serve, people that are given the privilege to serve, they do what they have to do. They don't see anything wrong with Liberia while they are serving, while they have that privilege. All of a sudden, when they leave government, they see all of the things that are wrong with the country. They see everything. Mr. Sheriff, you and I know that Zogos were in Liberia at the time the councillor was in government. What was his position on Zogos? What did the government do for Zogos? In fact, there is evidence that it was Ellen Johnson Sirleaf that organized the Zogos and the former Warring Faction Association, and that was giving them money, supporting them financially. So, that kind of pretense, is what is easily identifiable by some Liberians. This is why you see
why is it there wasn't this much problem under Ellen Johnson Sirleaf that it is now?
We're not using statistics here. We're not using statistics. There's much problem, much more. Nobody is bringing statistics here. That is not an intellectual way of discussing the issue. Who is bringing statistics that during Ellen time, this was the Zogo, this is passive? Nobody gets statistics here. Everybody is throwing these things out subjectively. So, but the point I'm making is that Zogos were in Liberia. Monrovia has been dirty. All of these things have been there. And people that enable these things, when they're in government, they got no position. Let me tell you something. Today, sometimes people even decry the appointment of certain mayors. Have we wondered how we got there? How did Liberia arrive at the appointment of certain mayors? When in our history, certain mayors were always elected. There is a history. We don't forget the history. The Congress for Democratic Change and I think the Liberty Party took Madam Sirleaf to court on the appointment of certain mayors. And some of the people today that are talking about the city, that are talking about an all-powerful president, they went to our courts and argue and persuaded the court that the appointment of certain mayors was within the purview of the president of the Republic of Liberia. Did they think that only Ellen was going to remain president forever?
Who argued?
So my brother, if you in your public service contribute to the disempowerment of the people, you cannot now come now and cry. We have to examine these things, And back to the point of my brother here, I've been trying to disagree with me. It's good to disagree. But the point I was making with Mr. Cummings, I'm not saying that he don't have the right to do whatever he wants to do. But Mr. Cummings is suing the legislature. It is the legislature that is trying to postpone the census. I'm saying if you are a leader of the opposition and you control Congress and you cannot even influence your members to the point where you got to go seek refuge in the court, I'm questioning that leadership. It is the same way we question. It is the same way we question Mr. Boakai's leadership. You say you are this elderly state man, you know everything. But when you had the opportunity to lead a four-party coalition, you couldn't lead the coalition. It crumbles under you. You gave all the excuses that you didn't do what you're supposed to do during Madam. Now you got the opportunity, executive, head of the CPP. It crumbles under you. Are you telling us that we cannot question these things? Where does the political capital translate?
Thank you.
No one here counter argue that the legislature is not controlled by opposition members. To the point where an opposition leader, instead of using his political relevance, instead of using his leadership in the legislature to get the legislature to do what it's supposed to do on behalf of our people, you're running away from there now. You go into the court decision that you selectively take. You take one decision here, he take the other. I mean, you can't have it both ways. But the fundamental point I'm trying to make here, let us not pretend that some of the problem Liberia face here, that this problem is the creation of this administration. that people who are clamoring to be leaders did not contribute to this problem. Almost everyone that is clamoring to be leader of Liberia, they contributed. They decimated our municipal government
Thank you.
because at that time the intelligentsia leadership was in place, and they
Yeah.
thought they were going to remain.
Oh,
Thank you.
oh.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr. Cooney. So,
can I?
Dave.
Yes.
So, Dave, I will give you a chance to respond to the Gonglo piece, but I also want to add something to that.
Okay.
George Weah had a very good week, right? George Weah, whether or not you agree as a Gonglo supporter, George Weah had a good week this week, right? So George Weah had two senators. I mean, call them what you may. I mean, I call them opportunists, and that's me personally. I mean, my own analysis. He had two senators, three members of the House of Representatives, five
Mhm.
legislators who crossed carpet to the CDC from their various parties to the CDC. And he also had all these political parties, six of them. They may be in name, some of them may be in name, but it doesn't matter. The optics is that, you had these political parties led by the UPP that, endorsed him. And so this is the week that George Weah had. So please respond to that. And the week that Weah had, are we on the precipice of a re-election?
The one round
I don't
victory.
want it. I don't want it, Mr. Cooney. I'm telling you, if this man goes ahead and win this,
Please,
Mr. Cooney will
One
be
round, one round
most,
victory.
yeah, one round. He will be the
It's
most
see,
sought
legal.
after.
yes. Okay.
I'm telling you. So,
Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. That's a full plate. But few things I
yeah, I'll give
just
you
want.
time. Yeah.
Okay. Few things I want to respond to first. The first starting with my brother Salif about the Gonglo speech. Yeah, your observation is well taken. Uh, but at the same time, what I would like to say is a campaign speech or campaign speeches are in succession. There is a series of speeches that are to come. It's not a one-time speech for that. So what the counselor is doing and what we are doing is that first laying the groundwork. We have to, as you will know, at some point there is a stage at which you incite your audience. You get them rattled. You get them riled up. Let them first get into that emotional phase of it. So pointing out the problems of Liberia, identifying them, give voters and even your listeners the enthusiasm to act and act more swiftly. So these are stages of the speeches that the counselor is going to be delivering. It's an ongoing process, and but first it has to start with what we call the emotional phase of it. And within that emotional phase, that's where you get our but these are some strategies in political campaigning that we are trying to adopt. But those observations are well taken. We understand them, but there is a strategic component to that. Okay. So we are in some zones and we have to excite the public. We have to bring to bear what are those challenges that Liberians are facing, and and we have a blueprint, a litany of solutions that the counselor has also in his arsenal. And we have to also be very careful with other people out there so that we can become very strategic in interacting and dealing with them. So yes, but that is a very crucial observation, but it's a process. It's an ongoing process that we are embarking on. So, but thank you for that. And some things that my brother Coney constantly say. Brother Kunin, when we have a nation, a republic of Liberia with a government, and this government has three branches. We all know that it has three branches that are acting together to serve the Liberian people. If there is a deficit of leadership, you will find that people shift blames here and there. If Josh Weah, and how does it even look? How does it appear to you if, let's say, one branch of the government is functioning and other branches are not functioning well? Do you blame political leaders that are outside of government for that? I thought we have a country, and for this country to function, the three branches of our government, some of whom we have elected and others appointed by our chief executive, have to be very effective. So it becomes the responsibility of the government, regardless of whatever party that person comes from. If President Weah was showing real leadership, some of the problems that you're trying to wave away, that you're trying to exonerate your Mr. Weah from, we won't have them. Even if we have them, he will be effective in dealing with the solutions of that. He is the chief executive of the country. If the legislative branch is not functioning, if the judicial branch is not functioning, it speaks to the broader competence issue of those that are in government, especially the head of the government. Be careful now. The president is not just the head of the government. It's not just the head of the government. He's the head of the nation as well. So you may blame opposition. Yes, they have a share of the blame, but the buck stop with the president. What does he do in these kind of circumstances?
Dave, I want you to respond to
You
Weah
know,
now, and then
and
we can
now
move on.
to Weah, you said Weah has a few days this week.
Right.
He has a great week and all of that. Brother Sharif, you are a student of history. You know that. You know what is happening. You know, one of not one of them, the Unity Party, no, not Unity Party, the CDC Secretary General was so bold to say that people are flocking to the CDC because of the performance of the CDC. And I said, where is he coming from? What planet is he on? When have Liberian politicians crossed carpet because of the performance of the government or the performance of the party in charge? When has that ever happened? We saw people cross carpet to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf Unity Party. It's all about themselves. So you might, maybe in optics, it might be seen as, but these are things that we all expect to happen. We remember, when people were flocking to the NDPL, the very people that flocked to the NDPL were the ones that overthrew it. so,
Right.
so it really um, doesn't mean that much, and it doesn't mean that much. This is the same usual Liberian story of they hang your shirt where the sun shines, and that shirt is only your shirt. They're not hanging the nation shirts there. It's not about the country. It's not about the people. It's
Thank,
about themselves.
thank you.
So those five people just carry 5 votes.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay, but quickly,
Dave, thank you.
can I just get 30 seconds to respond to Dave? Because he mentioned me significantly in his statement. I disagree with Dave. Look, where this president has been criticized, I don't have a problem with the president being criticized for what people believe that he should do or things that he didn't do as the chief executive of the nation. But Dave, I completely disagree with you that the president should be criticized for the function of the national legislature. We operate a constitutional democracy.
No, the
No, no,
function
no.
of his government. The
But
function
I'm
of his
talking about the
government.
legislature. Don't run away on our government.
Well,
We run a constitutional democracy where the branches of government they are co-equal branches of government. The failures of the executive is a fair game for anybody to criticize the executive for the failure of the executive. But you are telling the Liberian people that President George Weah must be held responsible for the failure of the legislature. Is that a democracy we have? That President
no,
George Weah
for the
should
failure
be
of his government, the failure of his government, of the
the
CDC
government is not
government.
a ghost town.
What constitute the CDC government?
The government is not a
What
ghost
constitute
town.
the CDC government?
Listen, you're not going to escape with that. That we should hold George. We are responsible for the function, for the failure of or the ineffectiveness of justices that have lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court. Justices, some of whom he didn't even appoint, that we should hold him responsible for that. That's not how that's not how democracy works, my brother. That dictatorship you're talking about, absolute dictatorship.
No, I'm talking about leadership.
No, it's not. You're talking dictatorship.
Leadership.
The president cannot dictate to the legislature.
I'm not suggesting that he should dictate.
So then, how do you hold him
He should
responsible for the
lead.
failure of the legislature?
If the government today crumbles, say the CDC government. You're not saying it's the legislative branch that crumbles.
Look,
If the nation collapsed today, who are we going to hold responsible?
if the legislature,
the government
nation is
of
not
Liberia.
collapsing. The nation is not collapsing. I don't know why you find it completely difficult to criticize. Why are you finding it completely difficult?
The nation has the counselor even
Why are you finding it completely?
Let's move. Let's
we gotta move on.
Let's move on.
Look, let me tell you, if the executive fail, the executive fail. If the legislature fail, let's discuss the legislature.
Let's move on.
Democracy. And you know, I wanted to get to my president's speech, but anytime I wait,
why don't we discuss it holistically?
Because that speech is one of the most brilliant political speeches that
let's move. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's move on.
And bringing all kinds of stuff.
Mr. Cooney, thank you. I
want to get to my president's speech.
We'll come back to it. So Ahmed, we're still on President Weah's speech. President Weah had a good week, right? So President Weah had a good week. And so what he does is, as President Weah always does, so he steps on this good day with announcing his record, his next record that he's going to drop. He tends to go off script, right? He extemporizes a lot. So he, when he goes off script and he talk about all these different things that he's trying to do. So he said, he's going to drop a new record. And do you think, Ahmed, as a as someone who is a specialist in public service, I mean, what kind of leadership is this? Because there's, as a president, I thought that there was a lot to do. That's really a hard job. I mean, there's a lot to do. You're so busy. I'm not going to say it's a hard job, but you're very, very busy. But somehow, some way, this president finds time to lead the country, to sing, to play soccer, to do all the different things that other presidents before him have not been able to do. What are we witnessing here, Ahmed?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mohammed. That's a very good question. Before I get to that quickly, we have to be careful when we are apologists or we are surrogates or advocates for our position, Mr. Cummings. You don't want to engage in lazy intellectualism or dangerous intellectualism. You cannot make categorical statements and don't expect people to hold you accountable. If you say that President Sirleaf was funding Zogos, that is a serious allegation because some of these Zogos are ex-combatants. We're trying to move the country forward. If there were politicians who are engaging in reactivating ex-combatants and things like that, some of us have problems with those. So you cannot also say because when other governments or other administrations were in office, these problems existed. Therefore, we are absorbed of these problems. You cannot hold us accountable. Why? How dare you question about this, about that, about that? Weren't they there when Ellen Sterling was president? Weren't they there when this person was president? Where's the governance? Where's the we don't elect our people in Liberia or any country for that matter so that we absolve them, so that we give excuses for them. We want them to govern and govern well so that it's difficult for opposition to criticize them. So that when those who hold people accountable and they scrutinize them, it's very difficult. Make that job very difficult. All right, that out of the way. I know you'll come back to speak to that. That's fine.
Of course, I will come back.
I
You
think
know
that
that.
what President Weah is struggling with, or at least people around him, his handlers are struggling with, they're struggling with populism, right? I mean, I hope that there will be that authorized biography that you will authorize somebody, or at least allow academics or political scientists to study Mr. Weah, to study his presidency, because the individual is one thing, the presidency style and governance and all of that, the politics, they're all different aspects of academic inquiry and curiosity. There's no problem with a president being symbolic. If the Because remember now they came and said power to the people, pro poor, the whole idea of governance for the poor, so that you lift our people out of poverty, so that you bring the government and the presidency closer to the people. That is really their mantra. What is problematic is that they have not in practice actually done that. They have not done that in governing. They have not done that really in reality. They try to do the symbolism. Sometimes it doesn't work. Now, you have to be careful when you try to be symbolic. You try to be a populist. Now, President Weah is a populist. He came to office on populism. That we cannot discount that. However, being a musician and doing all these sort of hip, sort of um, uh, popular culture things. There could be nothing wrong with it, but if something is seemed to be beneath the presidency, if something calls the office of the presidency in question, or impugns the image, the character of the country abroad, internationally, or amongst its peers, if our president then becomes disrespected by his peers, and then, and they treat him a certain way when he appears at international fora, international functions, then that's problematic. The people in the government, the people in President Weah's bubble have to pay attention. They have to advise the president properly. Look, President Talbot was a preacher. There's nothing wrong with that. If you separate theocracy from democracy, you're fine, right? We have a lot of Liberian officials who are pastors and reverend and imam and sheikh, and who can separate the civic duty from the religious, their faith. That's fine if you can do that very well. However, you are the president of the state, you are the president of the country, you are the president of all Liberians, of the Liberian people. When you engage in these things, sometimes some people, sit there and cringe as as we see the president. You drop this music. So what? How much? The presidency is hard. Don't say it's not hard, Sharif. It is hard. It's not hard when you constitute that when you play that conductor that I always talk about, that symphony orchestra conductor role, who knows the music, who assembles different musical instruments and players and watches them so jealously, make sure that you produce a masterpiece because you know the music, you know the instruments, you know the players, right? If that's what's happening, and we're seeing a masterful musical production, meaning that Liberian people are so happy, they're so doing well, the economy is good, that they're tackling these major problems that are affecting our people, frankly, the health, the education, the basic services, and then they're doing a capital investment thing. So listen, the president can play football. He's coming closer to the people. I don't have problem with that. But they're not handling these things. They're not with the populism is not working the way they think that they're trying to make it appear, because the serious things are not working apparently. That's where I have a problem.
Thank you. So, speaking of His Excellency Dr. We're gonna roll the tape now to
Can I come in
watch
first?
the president.
Can I come?
1 second. After this.
Meditation. Ephesians, we are brothers. So please give me your attention. Give me your attention because you are my inspiration. In our interaction, there should never be no agitation. So you can make the right decision. In our inspiration, there is no confession in our intention. So I can see your reaction. We are brothers. There should never be dissatisfaction. So you can't judge me by my imperfection. We are brothers. We are brothers. There should never be no argumentation, no intimidation in our congregation, in our impediment. There should never be a complication. We should look at our brotherly love as our destination. We should not mind speculations that bring segregation. Togetherness will get us to our destination. I say to you again, togetherness will get us to our destination. So, what we want is brotherly love.
Oh,
All right.
thank you. Thank you.
So this is our president. So I'll give you the opportunity, Mr. Corning, to respond to your party leader, right? You know, I'm sitting here, like Ahmed said, just screeching. I don't know if that's the right word. And I almost want to tell the president, please, Mr. President, don't spoil this good day, please. And I want to speak my dialect, my language. Ijon, Ijon. Or I'll speak Brown. Gongi, or Bravo Battery. You know, something like that. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I almost want to tell him, don't spoil this day with all of this. But he's doing this, right? So coming to the serious stuff now, Mr. Cooney, what is all this? And then in your response, tell me, you know, you had these guys, maybe we'll talk about them if we have enough time, who cross carpet, and you have these guys, you know, on stage with him, that, you know, they have to be crowned with this red beret. And you probably know something about red beret. So tell me the history behind this red beret that is now symbolic of CDC militantism.
Yeah, look, before I go there, let me just make one point clear. My brother talked about intellectual laziness or whatever it is. My brother, the fact that Zogos and other combatants were organized under Madame Selif is a fact. The fact that United Weah it is not anything that reflect intellectual laziness. The fact that the fact that Madame Selif, the government of Madame Selif were using financial resources to keep the voices of these Zogos and the former combatant muted during her administration is not a secret. It's well known.
I just want you to cite the data. That's all. I'm not saying the fact that I don't know.
It's not data. It's information that is.
Yeah, cite that information is the data. That's all.
Yeah. So but it's not. It doesn't reflect any kind of laziness. It's a well-known fact that, you know, these people were organized under Manaseli. They were sustained by some financial gain to keep them under control, to keep them muted, to prevent them from causing trouble. And then the other clarification I want to make, look, I've never argued that this government should not be held accountable for what it should do or should not do. The problem, I think, there is a little discord here when we put the scrutiny on other people. Everybody seems comfortable when the scrutiny is on Weah. You can see the comfort of people. But when we take that scrutiny on other people who want the same position as Weah, it generates a certain level of discomfort. I am not saying that because conditions prevailed in previous administration, it should continue. That has never been my argument. But there is an issue of credibility. If your performance in previous government create a specific social, economic, political problem for our country, I'm saying you lose the right to criticize on that issue. You can be the one that negotiate or was part of a team that negotiated 62 bogus concession agreement for us in a past government and now talk about our economy not performing. You just don't have that credibility. It is not to stop you from criticizing what this government is doing or is not doing. So let's get that straight. I mean, we appreciate why certain people feel discomforted when we put a light on other people. You talk about the political speech. What is the essence of political speech? Political speech is to inspire people. Political speech is to motivate people. Political speech is to arouse your base. Is to, as they call it in America, they call it rev up your base. And who is doing that better than anybody? You see the president? The president is appealing to his base. They can't even wait for the words to end. They are cheering. They are applauding.
Yeah.
You know, show me one political leader who has done even anything close to what Weah is doing. The essence of communication, the essence of speeches is to communicate to the people that we're communicating to and for them to understand us, for them to be persuaded by us, for them to be inspired by us. And anybody looking at our crowd and telling me that our crowd was not excited, that our crowd was not inspired, that our crowd was not persuaded, then you got to get certain blanket on your eyes.
Thank you.
Now, the final point is that, during the American campaign, Hillary Clinton was roundly criticized for referring to some supporters of Donald Trump as deplorables. I think the intelligentsia in our country, they run that risk. Because what they are saying is that every Liberian that were under George Weah voice speaking, that were clapping, that those Liberians, they are illiterate, they're not educated, they don't understand what they're doing. That is the label they're putting on our people.
I mean, nobody has said that. Nobody has said that tonight. So let's do this, right? So Dave, I'll come to you, but let's do this. We're going to listen to Mr. Boakai, who's somehow been missing for the most part, but he has something to say. And then I'll come to you, Dave, because it's important that we do this. I think what I want us to do is once we listen to all the speeches, we make our analysis, initial analysis, and then we can get our callers, to come in. So let's listen to Mr. Boakai now, His Excellency, the former Vice President.
Thank you. Members of the Fourth Estate, fellow Liberians, today I've come once more joining the women of Liberia and advocates against gender-based violence to call the attention of the Liberian government to the very alarming increase in the rate of sexual gender-based violence. In 2021 alone, the Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Protection reported 1,637 cases. Of this number, 56% were reports of sexual violence, and 50% were child survivors, with Montserrat County accounting for the majority. We are also informed that of the rape cases reported, indictments were drawn for 6.23% of the cases, 3.6% of the cases were tried, 3.12% of the perpetrators.
Okay.
Talking to
So,
the
yeah.
people of the Liberians that reside here and people of Liberian origin residing here, I've opened myself to questions for the past 3 days up to this morning. I played football with the Old Timers team and I answer questions. This evening, I'm here to appeal to you to commit yourselves to the transformation of Liberia. I don't use change anymore because change has been bastardized. One transformation. Currently, Liberia is in ICU because the voters of Liberia engage in child abuse. You do not give a load to someone who is unable to carry. We said everything to Liberians, they did not listen. What we are experiencing now is like having a 100-pound bag of rice placed on the head of a 10-year-old boy to carry. That's child abuse. Liberia affected by one-party state, by military coup, war, massive abuse of office, dictatorship, cannot be fixed, reconstructed by someone who is totally ignorant about issues of governance. We are experiencing it now. For the first time in history, I see a state failing in the time of peace. Often state failure is in time of conflict. This time, Liberia is failing in the time of peace. Every sector of the economy of the country is down. Health, education, road building, entertainment, everything. The worst is football. For the first time in the history of our country, from Tubman to Toba, to Samuel Doe, to Taylor, to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and the interim governments in between, I had never heard, and I'm 65 years old, going 66, that Liberia is unfit for international football game. It is happening under the watch of a football legend that was elected president. That is shame.
My name is Alexander Cummings, and I want to work with honest men and women to change Liberia for the better. I want to open the doors of governance to all capable persons. I want to use the collective brain power of all of our men and women. I want to build a nation of self-sufficiency. I want to build an environment that thrives on and promotes a vibrant Liberian private sector. I want to ensure that we are a nation where education is key in all of our national development priorities. I want to create and nurture a development agenda that ensures our young people have jobs when they graduate from school. I want to create an environment where our women have access to equal opportunities in every aspect of our society. I want to promote a system that uses our country's natural resources for the benefit of all. I want to see our country flourish beyond our wildest imagination. We are capable of doing it if we work together. We may not all agree all of the time, but we can set aside our differences and work towards charting a new course without the infighting, backbiting, and backstabbing.
Dave, please unmute yourself. So
someone is speaking and now put Dave to sleep. When President Weah was sleeping, Dave was up.
So you've heard You've heard all these speeches. I mean,
Yeah.
we've analyzed most of them now, even without the clip. But what we just heard just reinforced what we've already talked about. So I want to go to former Vice President Boakai. Of all the candidates in the past couple of weeks, I think he gives he made fewer appearances and he gave fewer speeches, fewer minutes. One of the press conference right after the Supreme Court decision, which was a major decision for him, I believe a victory for him, a major victory for him. He only took maybe 5 questions, and his prepared text was only 5 minutes. Why? What is wrong? What's going on here? What is going on?
No, I don't know. Well, Brother Cooney, before I even get to that, I wasn't falling asleep, but I was just saddened by the state of our nation. Yeah. The speeches did not put me to sleep. It was very painful when I watched
The man using his old progressive
yeah.
tactics on you, Dave.
Well,
You got to catch it.
he is still a progressive. I know that. Cooney is. This is one of the most pretentious character that we know. He's gonna vote for the LPP. The CDC, and why you think the CDC has not paid that much attention to Cooney? They know him. He's a Moja veteran. They know he's not with them. But anyway, that's another thing we will discuss at another time.
Okay.
They know where he stands. That's why they don't pay that much attention to him. You see, and at the beginning of our discussion, I said about what is the role we social scientists and maybe data analysts and maybe pool workers, we need to get our act people need to get their acts together to see what really is the Liberian psyche, what is it that we want, who we are. There's a lot of work to be done, and what I think is the best barometers through which maybe we will find out as to whether Liberians want to settle for this painful experience that they are undergoing or get to real serious leadership will be the outcome of the next elections. If whether Liberians enjoy what they see around them, whether they like what they see in their president, if that is what the Liberian people still want to settle for, the ball will be in their court.
Okay.
But I think Liberia doesn't deserve what it's going through right now.
Thank you.
I don't think Liberia deserves the kind of president that the country has.
Thank you.
But we will see at the election table and see whether they will still defy everything and ignore everything and say, well, we need Judge Weah. There's a lot of problems that is going
Dave,
on. My
wait,
brothers,
thank you.
yeah, but just something to clear of, like even the issue of the Zoko that they are trying to shift blame. If Mr. Weah was a very good leader who understands even the issues, why is it that there's not a commission right now on the Zokos? Why is it that there is not even an institution? People really is charged with the specific responsibility of studying the problem of the quote unquote Zokos in this country.
Thank you, Dave.
The brother is not leading.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
So, gentlemen, what I want to do is, after Akman and Koenig, so guys, please, really, we can't, we don't have enough time now. So what I will do, we'll take a break after you two, and then we'll bring in our callers, and then we'll go downhill from there. So at the 2 hour mark, we should conclude this. So we want to be right on time, and not after 2 hours or whatever. So Ahmed, if you were advising, you've been, you've told us you do you do consultancy with some political leaders. You didn't tell us who. Not that you should tell us now. It'll help. But if you were advising Joseph Newman Boakai, I got to be honest with you. You know, the speeches, the two speeches, the one that we just watched, which was a prepared text. I feel like it was, you know, it was when it was written, he didn't review it first before coming forward to read it. So it was picking it one at a time. The other press conference he had right after the Supreme Court decision was very brief. The questions, you know, he took only 5 questions, and he was very snippy with the media, and it was like, you know, he wasn't forthcoming on some of the questions, and it was not a good look for someone who is potentially the president of Liberia. I mean, you know, he is right now. So it's Boakai and Weah, if you know,
Mhm.
ask many Liberians. So what will you tell him to do?
Thank you. So I have to agree. I think it was President Obama who said that if you have a 5 minutes speaking engagement, you do 20 hours preparation.
Mm.
20 hours. Think about it. You may think that is a hyperbole, but it's really serious, right? These people who in other political contexts, who understand the optics, who understand the imagery, who understand the perception, the messages, and what our political speech is about. Not saying that we don't understand our country, but I think we can be lazy really at times. That
Mm.
speech wasn't rehearsed. That speech, you have to internalize the speech. You have to know the speech. You don't have to 100% not look at your paper. Yeah, note is just a reference, right? People have flashcards here in the US. It's very common. They flash just like a PowerPoint presentation. You don't read this stuff. You don't count words. You because you want to connect with the audience. Whether your audience is the immediate right here, like President Weah, your base, you're speaking to them, it's a radio audience, it's a television audience, it's someone who will watch you later on. You have the audience in mind, and then think about the political optics, meaning that the symbolism, the perception that this creates about how the candidate dresses, the body language when they deliver. Oh, let's face it, Mr. Barker is, with all due respect, a very low energy personality, right? That's not a disrespectful. And here, when we say some of these things, sometimes people, uh, political surrogates, take it very personal. We're trying to make our country better, right? I talked earlier about charisma. I talk about factors leading to political success or political speech making. Now, all kinds of factors you can look at. One of them is the who is the speech maker? What is their personality? Are they a charismatic person? Are they, how do they look? Their body image and things like that. So that speech was a poorly delivered speech, in terms of just even eye contact or the lack thereof, the energy or the lack thereof. The
No
content was
interest.
solid, the substance may have been solid,
Mm.
right? But I think it was probably, if I were advising him, I would have drilled him, I would have walked him. They have to have handlers who understand these things, who are willing to manage these candidates and push them and tell them why, the reasons why this is necessary, they have to do. President Weah, I have to say, okay, let's give it to Corning, right? The speaking is about, persuading, delivering the message, getting it across. The base right there, they were into it. It was energizing. However, that's not the only audience. The audience is Liberia, the rest of Liberia, the rest of the international community, other people who may not be the base, right? Yes, you may be routing your base. That's fine. The different context of political speech making, right? I mean, if it's campaign speech, stump speeches, that's different. If it's a national, a serious national matter you're delivering, like Mr. Boakai was doing, that's a different kind of speech making. If it was a policy speech, like Mr. Cummings was doing, right, it's a different kind of speech making. My problem is I don't see the thread, their messaging in there. I don't see them moving to the next level, and then I don't see them managing the optics and understanding really why this particular piece of speech is an art, is performatory, and it ought to be delivered a certain way.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, there was Mr. Coney. I know you will agree with this 100%. Mr. Boycott didn't seem to have any interest whatsoever I mean, he is the leading opposition candidate among the opposition. He is the top. He is in the top tier. So, and this is what we're getting. So, you know, lay this out for me, and I still would like for you to answer. You know, what is up with this red beret? You know, that's now symbolic of CDC militantism.
Okay, so quickly, look, you see the images of Ambassador Boakai. He looked coerced. He looked forced. I really do believe there is somebody somewhere that is forcing this old man to carry on this. He's not enthusiastic. Where is the enthusiasm? I mean, you say I'm gonna put all my hearts aside, but what's the enthusiasm? You know, I was laughing at Dave, but Dave took the biggest nap when Boakai was speaking. You know, and
I
so
don't know that.
it's for the United Party people to decide. And but more besides the presentation of the speech, because sometimes we don't look at the substance of the speech. I listened to the whole speech. He talked about gender violence. He talked about all of these things. I mean, the contradiction that is in the speech. You hear the ambassador appealing to the government to provide more resources, you know, to the justice ministry, to the police, to gender and everything. Then he make a very, I don't know whether he was trying to be politically cute, that we have the capacities to handle this problem. Just in a few seconds, you were recommending, you know, for more capacity. Then now, you know, because you want to be politically cute, you say we have the capacity, but we're not doing anything. That's a contradiction. Now, the substance of Weah's speech, you know, Weah is talking about unity. He's talking about brotherhood. In a way he understands it, in a way his partisans understand it. We cannot be united. If we come together as one group, we'll reach to our destination. We'll reach to our greater heights as a nation. That is the way he understands it, and that is the way his partisans understand it. And this is why you see them chanting. You see them shouting for that kind of speech. They are shouting for unity. They are shouting for peace. They are shouting for less agitation. They are shouting for the removal of speculation, these unnecessary speculations that accuses people of different things. This is the president's message to his partisans, that if we do away with all of these things, we can reach to our destination. And I think the partisans, they understand. And you know, it wasn't a policy speech. It was a purely based speech because that was the anniversary of the CDC. So it was basically a base speech. But back to the point of the barracks. Now we have to ask ourselves questions as analysts. This is the government. This is the president that has been portrayed by the opposition. He's ineffective. He's running the country to the ground. There is this demise of Liberia that is on the horizon. But see now, where are the politicians finding cover? You think it would be the other way around? If the Liberian people really believe what the politicians were saying, you will see politicians running away from the CDC, going to other political parties to rescue the country. But it is the other way around. You're seeing senators.
Thank you.
You're seeing representatives. And I disagree with Dave to say that only 5 votes. No. These people, they got constituency in their county. These constituencies never voted for Mr. Weah. So even if they go with 1/3 of that constituency, that's additional vote to Weah. This is why I keep saying the one round is blinking. It's blinking. Except that people don't want to see.
We've heard this before. Thank you. Thank you. Let's take our first break. And then when we come back, we will hear from our callers as we wind down this very interesting show. Let's take our first break. We are back. Viewers, if you're just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia, Tough Talking Thursday. I am your host, Mohammed Sharif, sitting in for Dennis Jad. Today I have our chief political analyst, Mr. Wilma Coney from the city of Philadelphia, and also from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, is Sir Dave Toja, a strong member of the Liberian People's Party and a big supporter of candidate Tiawan Gonglo, and our governance consultant, Agnes Salih from the Twin Cities in Minnesota. So right now, we will be taking calls. Calls or comments.
Yes, every time you deliberate, I know you expect and want much more for the country, and I couldn't agree with you more. And Mr. Cooney, I think Dave Jock called you out a little bit, but many times when I hear you, you make very, very sound logic. You know, so I give you that, Dave. I admire Gonglo, knowing him from LU, for his integrity that he's maintained. But like many of the progressive, strong men of yesterday, like Mugabe, they made terrible mistakes when it comes to the economics. Socialism did not work the way they thought it may work. So, but his integrity has been maintained intact, and I trust him for that. Ahmed, you're more of a coach, and I enjoy that, and I like your approach. You're saying, let's see you. If you guys want this thing to work for you, you need to do it in a certain way, and I appreciate that because I come from an engineering background. I have to build on what I have, the terrain I have. In other words, if I'm in the swamp, I have to build for the swamp. If I'm in the air, I have to build for the air. I cannot build for the flat road when I'm in a swamp. So in other words, the Liberian people, the majority, where are the votes coming from? The votes are coming from the people they call Zogo, the market women, the ordinary Liberian. What's the average education there? 12th grade, 8th grade? And I'm telling you, if you want those votes where the majority of the votes come, you have to speak to them. You have to resonate with them. And that is why I say Weah is a great politician. He has capitalized on his popularity, and he knows how to speak to these people. He doesn't need to do anything else. He doesn't need to go on a debate. He doesn't need to do anything else, but they identify with him, and he speaks on that level. One person has taken something from that, from a page from that book, is Dylan. Dylan found a way to speak to people, and he found a way to win. So,
Caller, what's your name and where you're calling from?
There's lane now. All of these politician wannabes, if they're not resonating with the people, they're not going anywhere.
Caller, what's your name and are you a member of the CDC?
That's what I want to say.
Your name and where you calling from? That was Jimmy Eastman calling from DC.
Jimmy Eastman, okay.
The next caller is Aliyu Kamara.
Aliyu Kamara, welcome to Top Talking Thursday.
Hello, Dennis. Hello, Mohammed. Hello, Ja. Hello, Mr. Coney and Ahmed. Yeah, I like the way you guys did it. You balanced it. You know, two from the southeast and two from the other side. That's a good thing.
Mohammed from River G.
Where's the other side? They're all southeast too.
Mohammed was a squatter in River G. You know, Mohammed, you look at my neighbor all over one or other.
My man, make him consequence.
Yeah, listen, you know, I don't want to sound frustrated to call because I heard the name just said Boakai, but I was just say a couple of things, Ahmed. You know, I think when it comes to the 5-minute speech that you guys made reference for, I think you guys are taking it too hard than what it really is. The point is that it was just a statement. It wasn't like a national speech where he had to spend 20 hours, rehearsing. It wasn't that deep. He had made a statement prior to the whole issue of the Supreme Court. He said that the United Party candidate, Mr. Kotima, would be on the listing from the National Elections Commission, no matter what. And I'm paraphrasing. And then it turns out that Mr. Kotima ended up on the list of individuals who were qualified to participate. So he only came back to reaffirm his commitment and the promise that he had made to his people that he was on the right side. So again, let us understand something. Some people are more effective and they're more concise and to the point. And some people believe in this long list of things that they really don't understand. For example, when Mr. Alexander Cummings comes out and makes all of these promises, how he would build bridge from Lopa County to Maryland County, the possibility of building that bridge, Joseph Brother understands that possibility is not realistic. And that is why he doesn't just come up and make promises, because it's easy to talk when you don't know the issue. When you know the issue, then it becomes difficult to talk sometimes because you know what the problem is, and sometimes people don't want to accept the actual issue. But let me just say thank you to all you guys. Thank you, Mr. Connie, for your point. I'm on two sides tonight. I'm on the 10-1 Gonglo side, and I'm on the Joseph Brother side. You already know where I stand. So we're here and we're watching. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Aliyu. Any other callers?
No.
All right. Do we have any comments? All right. So, all right. So, what is Dave? What's now we're trying to wrap up. We're winding down. Let's read a few comments. Anderson Wallow said, "Let Eastmore go sit down with his resonate. The market woman and his over resonate on their empty stomach and looking at wealth, and we are enjoying. Go hear the market women. You sit in America talking about the market women." Yenid Gavasan said the worst thing Ivy Leaguer Ellen Johnson Sirleaf did institutionalize brown envelopes and allowed the lawmakers to increase their salaries. I wonder if her peers like Professor Lee Kuan Yew and Sir Sarasi Kama have done the same thing. What Singapore and Botswana would look like today. Sad. That's a good point. Amos Waz said to give state power to unprepared individuals is a disaster. As having a ship on the water without a captain, but having a huge population on the ship, so Liberia can be likened to that analogy. River says Pro George Weah is a good speaker. No one whisper words in his ear. He doesn't read from a prepared script like Boakai. Howard Mesga said, good time charisma guy making new music again and doing a bugger dance for your. That's what Cooney is proud of. Hamilton Zilli said, Mr. Cooney enjoying the speech. I hope he was not the one that prepared. No, he wasn't. He's here. Henrietta Morgan said, the old man lives in the U.S. and saying this right. Wow. You people would take 6 years blaming Madame Sirleaf that you guys are protecting. Howard Masga, Mr. Cooney, your partisan Gibson Giroux son was beaten to death. Why you don't speak on justice for him? It will make our government look bad, right? Gibson Giroux. Yeah. Shad Son said, poor political analyst, how can you give A+ before asking questions? Complete dishonesty. Shad said, where was Gonglo ideas when he served as a minister? You know what? Let me respond to that. Gonglo resigned as who left Ellen Johnson's government with a lot of money on the table. He was working as Minister of Labor. He resigned, never went back to government. He could have gone to government. And most of you who are sending messages against Gonglo, you are taking jobs back in that government too. So Jackie Saya says, so should dirt remain. Should the history now that inform the evil that exists? Can things not change? The law is stable, but must not stand still. Excellent. Jimmy Eastman said, Agma, you're making a good point. Lumumba's speech on where Africa went wrong on leadership and politics was one of the best. But would he have garnered the same acclamation if he made it to Liberia today? Oh wow. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. We've degenerated so much. All right. So we're going to now go to uh so this will be the last. Fanny Siebel said JNB never crumbles. CPP, it is Cummings and Musa ability. So Sam Wallow, last, who gets excited by listening to someone laying out problems? Excitement comes from laying out innovative solutions. So with that now, we're going to be winding down. So I'll go to Dave. I'll still go to you, Dave. You can use this time to, um, answer this question, right? And then when you do that, you can give me. So what I want to do is go through the Tabata session and then final thoughts, so that at the 2 hour mark, we're done. And to me, I think it's an excellent job. Just keeping it with our time. So, you've heard people. I was somewhere the other day and they say, someone said, I love this guy. I love Tiawan Gonglo, but, he's poor. He doesn't have money. He's not going to run his campaign. So what are you guys doing? Are you really realistic, or are you just trying to do this for some kind of show and then you're going to form a coalition with someone else? And please be brief. If he doesn't win, then what's your plan? What's your next plan? Can you answer this in a minute?
I'll try to answer it in a minute, but to address the issue of Gonglo, maybe it will not take a minute. Um,
Come on, man. He's not.
okay, we'll try our very best. But you taking my time up now, uh, brother Sharif. The Liberian people have decided to recruit Gonglo. The brother was in his law office, and the Liberian people have decided to recruit him because of his, among other things, his integrity, his love of country, and his deep understanding of the issues. Listen to him. He has an in-depth understanding of the issues. So the Liberian people decided to recruit him. We decided. He did not put himself forth. Just a few days ago, another institution emerged in Monrovia called Liberians for Gonglo, the FOCO. And in less than 2 days, their chat room almost crashed. It reached 2,000 maximum. 90% of those people were Liberians found in Liberia, few from the diaspora. And that group encompasses every people from all walks of life in Liberia, every county. This is how far the Liberian people are thirsty for a new direction that can be provided under someone who is well tested, who has an affiliation with the Liberian people, who
Thank you.
understands the Liberian problem.
Thank you.
So money will not be a problem. Money is not a problem. The Liberian people themselves that have chosen to recruit Councillor Gonglo will foot every penny, and they are doing just that right now as we speak.
So as we speak, how much is in your account, the candidate's account?
And you want me to disclose that to you?
Yeah, I mean, he's running for public office.
I'm telling you, I mean, the campaign will do that. I'm just a support group.
Okay.
I manage Team Gonglo Diaspora, where I am the executive director.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
And there are a conglomeration of groups of people from all walks of life that are investing their last cash.
Thank you.
People are even selling their own houses, their wedding rings, just to have a transformed Liberia.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Mr. Cooney. Let me be fair. I want to do this round, and then we'll do our Tabata session and our final words. So, same thing to you. So George Weah, he's a top tier. I mean, for re-election, obviously he has the advantage of incumbency. He also has a lot of money stolen from the Liberian people, and he's going to use that money to run his campaign, which he's doing right now. So, but what if he loses the election? What is Plan B for you guys?
When you throw wild accusation around that George Weah stole a lot of money on this platform, I don't see Ahmed charging you for intellectual laziness. But when we say Ellen
has not spoken.
I haven't had my turn to speak yet. And
when we say Ellen Funnel Zogos, so we see the discomfort.
Ahmed is going to have time to respond to you.
We see the discomfort here when the camera, focuses on other people other than Weah. But let me tell you something. One of the reasons why I support the president, he's a very peaceful man. George Weah loves Liberia. He's very, very peaceful, non-controversial. He's upholding the tenets of our democracy. Freedom of speech, no political prisoner. Not a single Liberian has been incarcerated during George Weah administration for their political view, including a senator who publicly stated that he will organize people to go to the president's house to stone the president's residence. This is the man, George Weah, very peaceful. And look, as I indicated to you, as you already pointed out, this week was a very good political week. It's an indicator of what 2023 will look like. There is no doubt that George Weah will be elected, and George Weah will be elected on the very first ballot. Okay. I remember sometime I said on this show that the only thing standing in the way of a CDC victory is CDC itself. I think you remember me saying that. The only thing that stands in the way of CDC victory is CDC itself. I hope the party will do some internal work to close ranks, to bring other partisans together. There may be some people who are disaffected right now. Bring them on board. Build unity within the party. That's what the president was talking about. I do not see any political entity in Liberia today that will defeat a united, mighty Congress for Democratic
As a strong member of this, as a big supporter of the president and a very prominent member of the CDC, are you? Do you know how much is in the party's account right now? How much money they have to campaign with?
No, I don't know, but I know the party.
Or is the National Bank of Liberia the party's? The party.
Agbe will be quiet again. We're not charging for anything.
Come on, man. I think the intellectual laziness thing really got to go.
We're not charging for intellectual laziness.
I just want you to be objective. I mean,
but the fact of the matter is,
yes,
the Congress for Democracy, even before they got into government, before they became the government, that party sustained itself for 12 years. The party has a record of sustaining itself.
That's true. That's true. I agree with you.
So to say that because now they're taking money from central bank, come on, brother Sherry, you know better than that. Ain't nobody taking money from central bank.
I agree with you. They sustain themselves. I agree with you on that. And they were strong for all those 12 years. So
I'm
Ahmed,
waiting for Ahmed to bring
So
all the
yes,
charges against you.
exactly.
Ahmed,
Let me.
Ahmed, you are very fair minded, and you know, as someone said, you know, you're a teacher, and so talk to me about. So one of the things that Mr. Cummings, when I watch him, and you know, Liberian journalists, I mean, talk about not doing your due diligence, right? When Cummings speaks, and no one is asking question about where was he when Liberia was in need, right? He was a top executive, and hopefully, I mean, I've said all the good things about him tonight. I hope that the ANC people will not come after me. But here's one thing the journalists can be asking: where were you, sir, during the Civil War? What did you do for us, right? What did you do for the country? George Weah was coming back. Meanwhile, you know, when he still had money. Of course, after that he went broke. So Cummings had money. He didn't come back. He never did anything. And now, as Mr. Coney consistently says, when it's time to run for president, he comes in and says he wants to be president. You know, how come he didn't show leadership? So do you agree with this assessment?
Well, listen, I have asked that question. I've lived in Minnesota here, in and out, in different parts of the world, but I've come back here for a long time. Mr. Cummings used to work here for the Pittsburgh company. He's still here on Sabaton's board. A lot of Liberians I've spoken to, they say the OLM, Organization of Liberians in Minnesota, he never showed up. He never showed up for the community. There was a small group here. I'm not going to call the name, but they were known as the elite in the community. They said he associated with that group, but I never did. I done that. I should have seen him, but I'm actively involved in the community. I never saw Mr. Cummings. People in Atlanta, they're saying, where was he? Where has he? So it's a difficult question for him and his campaign, and they haven't answered that question. They haven't, and in Liberian politics, frankly, in Liberia, the people ask you, I don't care what kind of office you're running for. They say, what have you done before? You'll be running for Bapalu, and you say, people, have you been here before? You know, have you built a well? What have you done? So that's a difficult question for his campaign. He has to answer that. In terms of, let me dispel, this notion, Mr. Conning, you don't know this about me. Let me tell you, when President Weah won the presidency, I was invited to sit on the transition team. I was on the subcommittee on governance to help establish the form that government, and we did a lot of writing for them. For example, the final JPTT, Joint Presidential Transition Report, that President Sirleaf, outgoing president, and incoming president, we are signed on inauguration day. I was the lead author. They locked us in 1 week in a hotel writing that report. Some international people wanted to write it. Some Liberians got really offended by that we have Liberian professionals who can do these things, right? I hung around. I helped a lot of the agencies to transition and things that we were hoping to build a kind of team and stuff to happy for Liberia. I'm for Liberia. I come here because I want to see the best I want to see my country moving forward. I want to see, us doing well. And so when I come here, I try to come from a place of objectivity. I hold everybody accountable. I scrutinize people. It's not personal for me. I don't care how people label me. Boakai people, a lot of people in his camp that I'm close to, a lot of people in President Weah's administration that I'm close to, in the Cummings camp, I speak to them. Mr. Gonglo's camp, I tell them the truth. Like I just told you, someone ambushed me and called me and put Gonglo on without warning me. And I told him, I said, you didn't finish that speech. And he agreed. Cummings too didn't finish his speech. Mr. Cummings talks about, oh, we can do this. We can do this thing for Liberia. We grow the budget to $1 billion. And this. It doesn't get to the how, right? Political speech, you have to understand the thread, the messaging, and tell the people why you are a better person. There's this condition. You've established the condition. But then what does the rhetoric say that will help them understand that you are a better person, that they should choose you? It's about winning hearts and minds. It's not about just speaking to your base alone, okay?
Thank
so
you.
I just wanted to dispel that. Finally, look, Weah came into office and said, I'm not a great speaker. I didn't come here to make great speeches, right? On his first State of the Nation address, I was in Liberia, I heard that. He said that. So, he recognizes that we don't hold him to be this or into great orator and all of that. However, there's responsibility in speech making. President Weah does not speak often. He could use the same dieting up of his people that you just described. You so love Mr. Cooney, but he doesn't do a lot of that. The national serious things that happen in the country, we don't hear from our president. And it doesn't matter how eloquent or not eloquent, we just want to hear the president is there, he's speaking to us, he's paying attention to these issues. If he doesn't speak, we don't know whether he's paying attention or not.
Thank you, Ahmed. So thank you, gentlemen. This has been a fascinating conversation tonight here on Focus on Liberia, Tough Talking Thursday. If it's Thursday, it's got to be here on Focus on Liberia, nowhere else. So at this time, we're going to merge, these two sessions. We're going to merge our Tabata session with our final comment. So 2 minutes each. That should take us to the 2-hour mark. And so, Dave, I'll start with you. What's your Tabata of the week and your final thoughts?
Well, let me start with my final thought, and then that will be a segue into my Tabata session. Part of despite our various backgrounds and our whoever we support, one thing is very much fundamental is our country. Has some Councillor Gonglo somewhere said that Liberians, regardless of where you live, you should at least be enthusiastic. You should be happy to go home. And Liberia should be a country where you will be even reluctant to leave. That is the kind of Liberia that we want. My fellow panelists, I when I say it, people like, oh, what are you talking about? The place that I slept peacefully, and even my longest sleep always occur in Liberia, despite the chaos in Liberia. Each time I go back home, when I fall asleep, people are shocked. I don't snore, but I snore in Liberia when I go there. Why? Because I feel at home. I feel happy when I see people that look just like myself, that I don't even need to. Once I say ba, they understand what I'm talking about. Whatever jargons I
Got
speak in the
one more
Liberian
minute,
way,
Dave.
okay, they understand that. So we want the best for Liberia. And this is why I'm very enthusiastic about Councillor Gonglo. He's going to tap into the best in us. Even before he leaves this country, there is a plan underway that he wants to meet with all Liberian professionals, the various stakeholders. Think Liberia has a lot to offer. Liberians, we have a lot of brilliant people, a lot of technocrats that we can count on, that can give some ultimate sacrifice to the country.
Thank you.
But now, so to my Tabata session. Having said that, brother Sharif, having all of the potential that we can envisage about Liberia, I was shocked. And this is my Tabata section, that despite our existence for all these years, the SKD has been in existence for over 30 years, and we have not developed any talent, or our government is not able to identify Liberian talents, Liberian skills that will, as I will put it, plant grass
Thank you.
on the SKD.
Thank you, Dave.
Inviting a foreign firm to plant grass
Thank you.
on our field. That's the Tabata for me of the week.
Thank you. Ahmed.
All right. Thank you so kindly for this very spirited conversation tonight, Mr. Cummings. It's nothing personal, an intellectual, an analyst. If you skew the data or you're not balancing it, I'll call you out, call me out. That's fair game. We want to make Liberia better. I want to go to my final comments to focus it on public speech making, political speech making. I started by saying, listen, Words matter. Words change Africa. Words could have done a lot, a change country Liberia if we had implemented a lot of what the rhetorics we heard in the past. The handlers around our political leaders, around our president, strategy matter. You can't just wing the thing. You can't just say, "Oh, Labrampo don't care about all that offensive thing there, your intelligentsia and this and that." Whatever Mr. Cummings accuses of people who I guess are educated of. You have to systematize anything you're doing. Public speaking, you don't just speak in a vacuum. You have an
One more minute, Ahmed.
I know I'm running it up.
Okay.
You recredit that. You see, you disrupted my thought there. So the thing is about
Hey, Liberia people.
you have systematizing your strategy. Have a message. Have a team that runs through anything, anywhere, any stump speech, any speaking situation. A politician, whether opposition or the president. The president. So we're discussing this here because it matters. It gives our people hope. It talks about what the government, the president is doing to govern. Are they governing? Are they paying attention to this? How was our image internationally and so forth and so on? So we will hold people to how they make their political speeches and what they promise, what are they showing us and demonstrating how they can be better. If they don't, we'll call them out. If the president is not speaking enough, we'll call them out and we ask people around them to really hire professionals. They are professionals. I'm not suggesting they are not. In Liberia, we in the diaspora, there's a tendency for people to say, "Oh, the people that are not educated." A lot of very highly educated, sophisticated Liberians who've never left Liberia.
Thank you.
Sometimes a whole lot better than some of us in the diaspora. So let's just establish that. So we'll hold them accountable. I will continue to hold them accountable for the good of Liberia. Tabata, how can I end this without saying the president's booga dance? I mean, it's gone viral, right? And, people have asked me about it, people who are non-Liberians. So it's happening. I think the populism that the CDC administration is kind of hedging the president towards these dances, these songs, they're leading him somewhere beyond the borders of Liberia.
Thank you, Mr. Cooney.
Well, look, as a supporter of the president and a supporter of the government, supporter of the Mighty Congress for Democratic Change, I'm really excited this week. Just like you said, we had a brilliant political week. The president made an excellent political speech. The partisans received the speech. But what is even more exciting is the fact that now some of the pronouncements that we made on this platform are beginning to make an impact in the leadership of the CDC. I was very happy when Minister Nathaniel McGay predicted very very clearly on the radio that indeed the CDC will win a first-round victory. That was my first time hearing a highest official of the CDC adapting that position. So we are happy that that position was first articulated on FOL, and that position will come to pass, and it will be to our credit.
Okay. 1 minute.
My tabata here is the suggestion by so many people that because President Weah connects with the ordinary people in the things that they understand, whether about music, whether about dancing, that to some extent that thing diminishes Liberians standing in the international community is the greatest tabata. My brother here keep talking about data. There is no data to suggest that our president has been disrespected at any international forum because he dances or because he sings music. That is just a propaganda by the intelligentsia elite. And the intelligentsia elite are not educated people. The intelligentsia elite are the educated people who feel entitled to
Thank
power.
you. We've heard that.
Are the entitlement group.
Thank you. We've heard that before. Thank you. All right. So mine is still the president, I guess. The president had a good week, but the president now, steps on all of this and is talking about songs. He's dropping another song and he's talking about the lyrics. I mean, presidency is serious business. So my tabata of the week is still the president, talking about song in the middle of a very serious speech, what I consider a serious week for them and a good week for them. It still is a good week. I'll not take that away from them. So with that, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for being here for a very spirited conversation. I want to thank our viewers for following along and all the viewers who call in. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank our producers and everyone who made this show possible. We are all Liberians. We are all Liberians. Oh, here come Jackie said, come next time with facts and statistics and not beliefs and opinions. That's my Tabata. All right.
I agree, Jackie. Come with statistics and evidence.
So whether we're going to close with whether you're independent, whether you're a seditian, Weahians, as George Weah says, whether you're a supporter of the ANC or the Liberty Party, we are all Liberians. Liberia is the only country that we have, as we always say. And so thank you all so long for now. Until next week.
We are Liberia. Liberia is our home. Liberia people. Liberia, we want. Liberia, Liberia, we want. Liberia,